Most penis surgeons won't say this out loud, but I will. Because what happens when a man stops masturbating after 60 isn't just about pleasure, it's about his life force fading quietly day by day. I've seen it happen too many times. A once strong, vibrant man starts losing clarity, his energy fades, and his erections disappear. Not because of age, but because he gave up on the very practice that kept his body and brain alive. I'm Dr. James, and for over 30 years I've helped men in their 60s, 70s, even 80s restore their circulation, vitality, and connection to their masculinity without pills, shame, or surgery. And today I need to tell you something no one else is saying. You've probably been told that stopping masturbation is clean, disciplined, or even spiritual. But the research and what I've seen firsthand shows the opposite. When older men quit completely, everything from their prostate to their emotional health begins to shut down. In this episode, I'm going to reveal the 7 very real things that happen when a man stops pleasuring himself in old age, physically, emotionally, hormonally. And wait until number 6, because that's where we uncover the silent damage that affects a man's deepest sense of self-worth. Let's begin. Before we begin, if you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and tap that button and turn on the bell so you never miss important advice about your health, vitality, and manhood after 60. And if this topic speaks to you, type 1 in the comments. If it doesn't, type 0 and let me know how I can better support your journey. Let's start with the part most men overlook, but it's the first to suffer when you stop masturbating: your prostate. This small gland plays a massive role in your urinary health, erections, and hormone balance. And when it's ignored for too long, the consequences can quietly build up. 1. Your prostate grows sluggish and may become a problem. I want to take you back to one of my first patients in this field, a man named Richard. He was 67, retired, sharp-minded, proud of his independence. But over the years, he began waking up 2-3 times a night to urinate. His stream had weakened, there was discomfort, and he always felt like he hadn't fully emptied his bladder. Blood work showed rising PSA levels. His regular doctor sent him into a tailspin of fear, mentioning words like biopsy and cancer, but no one had asked him one simple question: when was the last time you ejaculated? He looked at me with a blank face and said, "It's been years, Doc. I figured I was too old for that stuff." And that right there is where many men begin to suffer in silence. You see, the prostate is not a passive organ. It's a muscular gland designed to produce and expel fluid regularly. When you stop masturbating and ejaculating in your later years, that fluid doesn't just disappear. It builds up. It stagnates. And over time, your prostate begins to swell, tighten, and lose its ability to function the way it's supposed to. Now, I know some men watching this might feel proud that they've given up masturbation. Maybe it was for religious reasons. Maybe it was shame, or maybe it just didn't seem necessary anymore. But what they don't realize is that this quiet abstinence can cause the prostate to fall asleep, so to speak. The muscles weaken, inflammation can set in, and your body begins sending distress signals through urinary changes, pelvic pressure, and even pain. In Richard's case, after ruling out cancer, I recommended a simple natural regimen: hydration, a prostate-supportive diet, and yes, regular ejaculation. Within 3 months, he reported fewer nighttime bathroom trips. By 6 months, his flow improved, discomfort reduced, and PSA levels dropped from a scary 5.2 down to a normal 2.1. Not a pill, not a surgery. Just a man reconnecting with a part of himself he'd been taught to ignore. The truth is, ejaculation is a cleansing act for your prostate. It flushes out old fluid, supports muscle tone, and may reduce your risk of benign prostatic hyperplasia, the very thing that causes frequent urination in older men. When you stop entirely, you remove one of the body's most natural maintenance routines for that organ. I've had patients tell me, "But Dr. James, I don't feel the urge anymore." And I get it. But that's often not because the body doesn't want it, it's because the mind has trained itself to suppress desire. And when that happens, the physical systems follow. The good news is they can be awakened again, gently, patiently, and with intention. You're never too old to reconnect with your body. You're never too old to honor the systems that kept you strong for decades. And the prostate, it's one of those systems. If you ignore it, it can make your life harder in ways you never expected. But give it what it needs, and you might just feel younger from the inside out. And speaking of feeling younger, what if I told you that when older men stop masturbating, it doesn't just affect their organs, it begins to shrink something far more personal and harder to reclaim? Let's talk about circulation and what happens when blood stops flowing the way it used to. This one may surprise you. 2. Circulation to the penis begins to diminish. I remember the look in Harold's eyes the day he came into my office. He was 71, recently widowed, and had lost his sense of direction, not just emotionally, but physically too. "Dr. James," he said quietly, "it's like my manhood has fallen asleep. It used to respond even if I didn't try that hard. Now, nothing." And he meant it. No morning wood, no arousal, no response. Just silence. When I asked him how often he'd been touching himself, really engaging with his body, he gave me that same awkward pause I've seen from so many men. "I stopped," he said, "seemed like there wasn't much point anymore." But here's the hard truth I had to share with Harold, and with countless other men. If you stop masturbating in your older years, circulation to your penis begins to decline. Not gradually, but measurably. And when that blood flow weakens, your manhood doesn't just lose sensation, it starts to break down. You see, the penis isn't like the heart or the liver. It's more like the lungs or the muscles. It needs activity. It needs movement. It needs oxygen-rich blood flowing through those chambers to keep the tissues elastic, the nerves sharp, and the smooth muscle fibers healthy. When you go too long without sexual stimulation, without erections, without full blood flow, the body deprioritizes that region. It assumes it's not needed anymore. And so, what happens? The capillaries begin to shrink. The smooth muscle starts to atrophy. Sensation begins to fade. And for some men, the penis can physically shrink by up to an inch over time. Not from aging itself, but from disuse. It's not just about pleasure. It's not just about sex. It's about preserving structure and function. Every time you have an erection, whether it's from sexual activity or simply healthy stimulation, you're giving those tissues a reason to stay alive. You're delivering fresh blood, keeping the nitric oxide pathways open, and reminding the body that this part of you still matters. I've had older men tear up in my office when I explain this. They weren't told. No one warned them. They just thought it was a natural part of getting older, that the engine winds down, that performance fades, that desire vanishes. But most of the time, it's not desire that's gone, it's circulation. And circulation can be restored. Harold was hesitant at first, but we began slowly. Breathing exercises, warm compresses, light stimulation, and eventually regular mindful masturbation. Not from shame, not from habit, but from care. For his body, for his dignity. And within 3 months, his morning erections returned. Not every day, but often enough to bring a smile back to his face. "I feel like myself again," he said. That's the beauty of circulation. When you show the body you still need it, it responds. But here's the part most men never see coming. It's not just about blood and flow. When you stop engaging sexually, another group of muscles, ones you don't even feel until they weaken, begin to break down. And when they do, they take your strength, your posture, and your control right along with them. Let's talk about that next, because it's one of the most overlooked causes of both incontinence and bedroom trouble in men over 60. 3. Your pelvic floor muscles start to waste away. I want to tell you about a man named Leo. He was 74, retired from the fire department, tough as nails on the outside, but when he sat in my office, he didn't look so strong. He said, "Doc, I've been leaking. Just little drops, but it's embarrassing. Sometimes I don't even feel it. I never thought I'd be the guy wearing a pad." He thought it was just age. He thought maybe he was drinking too much water at night, or that his bladder was weakening. But when I examined him and asked about his sexual health, one thing stood out. He hadn't ejaculated or touched himself in over 4 years. Not once. What he didn't know, and what most men aren't told, is that there's a group of hidden muscles deep in the pelvis called the pelvic floor that control much more than you think. These muscles are responsible for urinary control, ejaculation, and even the firmness of your erections. They're part of the foundation of your manhood. And when you stop masturbating, when you no longer engage in any kind of sexual stimulation, those muscles begin to weaken, and I mean significantly. You might not notice it right away. There's no pain, no alarm bell, but slowly they begin to lose tone. You may start to dribble urine when you cough or laugh. You may feel less force during ejaculation, or worse, you might not feel much at all. The truth is, orgasm isn't just about pleasure, it's muscular. When you climax, the pelvic floor contracts rhythmically. Those contractions are a workout. They keep those muscles engaged, alive, responsive. Take that activity away and those same muscles begin to waste. Over time, they forget how to fire. And when that happens, the consequences aren't just physical, they're deeply emotional. You feel a loss of control, a quiet erosion of pride and identity. Leo was devastated, not because he'd lost the function, but because no one had told him this could happen. He thought giving up masturbation was the respectable thing to do. But no one explained that the body doesn't care about social rules, it cares about movement, about stimulation, about use. So we began pelvic training, but more importantly, I encouraged him to reconnect with his body, slowly, with intention. And as uncomfortable as it felt at first, he did. Gentle self-touch, breathing, reconnecting with sensation. Within 4 months, he reported fewer leaks. His confidence returned. He even said he felt more grounded, more alive when he walked. You see, the pelvic floor is part of your core. It supports your spine, it holds your organs, and it controls your most intimate expressions of masculinity. When you stop masturbating completely in old age, those muscles begin to shut down, not out of punishment, but out of disuse. And that disuse can quietly take away your strength, your pleasure, and your control. But what if the consequences went beyond the body? What if stopping masturbation also changed your brain, your moods, your focus, even your desire to get out of bed in the morning? That's exactly what we're going to talk about next. And for many men, it's the piece they never see coming until it's already affecting everything. 4. Mental fog, irritability, and emotional flatness set in. I'll never forget the day Tom sat down in my office. He was 69, healthy by most standards, heart looked good, blood sugar in check, no medications, but something in his eyes was off. He looked tired, not just physically, but emotionally worn down. He told me, "Dr. James, I just don't feel like myself anymore. I forget why I walk into rooms. I snap at my wife. I can't seem to enjoy anything. I'm not depressed exactly, just flat." When I asked about his sexual habits, he chuckled awkwardly and said, "That ship sailed years ago." But that's exactly what triggered my next question. "Tom, when was the last time you masturbated?" His face turned serious. "I stopped years ago," he said, "didn't think it mattered." That's where I had to tell him the truth. It does matter. A lot more than most men realize. Masturbation isn't just about physical pleasure. For men, especially those over 60, it plays a key role in mental clarity, emotional stability, and even daily motivation. When you stimulate yourself, your brain releases a powerful cascade of neurotransmitters: dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, and endorphins. These aren't just feel-good chemicals, they're the very substances that help regulate your mood, sharpen your memory, and give you that natural lift to move through the day. But when you stop masturbating entirely, especially later in life, your brain starts to experience a neurochemical drought. That soft flood of reward, that calming wave of serotonin, that surge of oxytocin that makes you feel connected to yourself and the world, it's suddenly gone. The result? A quiet, creeping fog that settles in. You may not feel it overnight, but one day you'll realize you're more irritable. You can't focus like you used to. You're restless, but not motivated. You're alive, but not lit up. And the worst part, you start to accept that feeling as your new normal. That's what happened to Tom. He thought it was just part of aging. He thought maybe his diet was off or his sleep was poor. But when he slowly reintroduced mindful self-pleasure, nothing extreme, just a gentle reconnection to his body, something remarkable happened. Within 2 weeks, he said he felt more relaxed. By a month in, he was sleeping better. By the 3rd month, he was cracking jokes in my office again. He told me, "I never thought touching myself again at this age would change my mind more than my body." And he was right, because so much of what we lose as we age isn't just physical, it's emotional tone, mental sharpness, and the quiet fire that makes us want to live fully. When you cut off sexual stimulation, especially completely, you're also cutting off one of your brain's most natural sources of hormonal balance and mental vitality. It's not about addiction, it's about nourishment. But as powerful as those brain chemicals are, they're part of a much bigger picture, your entire hormonal system. And there's one hormone in particular that takes a big hit when you give up masturbation too soon: testosterone. What happens to your masculine drive when that hormone starts dropping faster than it should? That's exactly what we need to talk about next, and it's something every man over 60 should hear before it's too late. 5. Testosterone may drop more rapidly. I remember a conversation I had with Charles, a 72-year-old retired engineer. He was a man of routine, logic, and discipline. Still did his morning walks, still cooked his own meals, still read every nutrition label like a textbook. But lately, something had shifted. "Dr. James," he said, "I feel slower, not just physically, but inside. I'm not angry, I'm not sad. I just feel like someone dimmed the lights." When I asked about his testosterone levels, he told me they had been falling faster than expected over the past 2 years. He'd even been considering hormone therapy, but there was something in his story that caught my attention. He had also stopped masturbating entirely after his wife passed away. Didn't seem right anymore, he said. Felt selfish, or maybe just pointless. I gently told him what I've told so many men over the years. Stopping all sexual activity, including masturbation, in later life may seem like a moral or emotional decision, but physiologically it can send the wrong signal to your body. When you remove that stimulation, your endocrine system, the system responsible for hormone production, can start to slow down earlier than it should. You see, the body is responsive. It listens. And when a man stops showing any sexual engagement, the body assumes it's no longer needed. The brain tells the testes to ease up on testosterone production. The energy that once fueled libido, muscle maintenance, and motivation gets rerouted or simply fades. Some researchers have even found a connection between sexual frequency and testosterone maintenance. Regular, healthy masturbation or sexual activity may help support testicular function, reduce stress hormone levels like cortisol, and help maintain a stable hormonal rhythm. But when you stop entirely, especially after 60, testosterone often drops at a faster pace than expected. And that drop isn't just a number on a lab report, it shows up in real life. You may notice you're more tired after simple tasks. You might stop waking up with erections. Your muscle tone softens. Your belly starts to grow even if your diet hasn't changed. Your ambition fades. Your voice may even feel less full. It's like someone turned down the volume on your masculinity and you can't quite figure out how to turn it back up. That's what Charles had been feeling. He thought he was being respectful to his past, to his age, to his image, but his body read it as surrender. We worked together on a plan, not just supplements or labs, but reconnection. I asked him to reintroduce self-touch in a way that honored his memories, his grief, and his present needs. Slowly, he noticed the shift. Within weeks, his energy began to lift. He told me he woke up with morning erections again, small but real. His mood improved, and when we checked his levels 3 months later, testosterone had begun to stabilize naturally. It wasn't magic. It was biology responding to action. You don't have to chase pleasure to protect your hormones, but you do have to show your body that you still value this part of yourself, that it still matters. And testosterone isn't the only thing that fades when you cut off that part of yourself. Sometimes the greatest damage isn't hormonal or muscular, it's emotional, deep, quiet, invisible. And it can slowly rob a man of something even more personal than his strength, his connection to himself. And that's what we need to talk about next. Because for many men over 60, this is where the real decline begins. 6. Emotional detachment and shame begin to build. Not long ago, a man named Robert came to see me. He was 70, widowed for over a decade, polite, sharp, and soft-spoken. He told me, "Dr. James, I've done everything I'm supposed to do. I eat well, I walk every day, I volunteer at the church, but I still feel like something's missing, and I don't know what it is." He paused. "Some days I feel like I'm just floating through life, not really in it." As we talked, I gently asked him when was the last time he touched himself, really gave himself time, attention, even affection. He looked down and said, "It's been years. I thought I was too old for that, or maybe I didn't deserve it anymore." That moment sat heavy in the room because I've heard versions of that same story from so many older men. Men who gave up masturbation not because they didn't want to, but because they felt ashamed or thought they'd outgrown it, or simply stopped believing they had the right to feel pleasure. But here's what most don't realize. When you stop masturbating entirely in old age, you don't just turn off a physical switch. You start to lose a subtle, vital connection with yourself. That sense of being grounded in your own skin, that feeling of ownership over your body, the quiet dignity that comes from simply knowing you can still feel and deserve to. Over time, that disconnection becomes emotional. You begin to detach from joy, from intimacy, from confidence. You may start to feel invisible in your own life, numb, unworthy. You may stop looking in the mirror, you may avoid certain memories, you might find yourself withdrawing, not just from others, but from yourself. And underneath all of that, a kind of shame begins to take root. The kind that whispers, this part of you no longer matters. And that shame is dangerous, not because it's loud, but because it's silent. It doesn't scream. It settles in your bones and convinces you that you're past the point of desire, of worthiness, of touch. But that's not the truth. I've sat across from men who hadn't touched themselves in 10 years, and within a few weeks of mindful reconnection, breathing, relaxing, simply exploring their body again, they began to cry. Not out of sadness, out of relief, because for the first time in years, they felt human again, alive again. You see, masturbation isn't just a sexual act, it's an act of self-respect. It's a message to your nervous system that says, I still matter, I still feel, I'm still here. When you strip that away completely in old age, you risk more than loneliness. You risk forgetting who you are. And if that sounds intense, it should. Because for many men, this is the quiet breaking point, the emotional fracture that can lead to deeper struggles. Isolation, depression, even a decline in physical health. But we're not done. Because what if I told you this loss of connection doesn't just affect how you feel emotionally? It could actually shorten your lifespan. That's right. There's one more consequence that might be the most surprising of all, and it's the one most men never see coming until it's far too late. Let's talk about that next. 7. Longevity signals begin to fade. A few years ago, I was treating a man named Gerald. He was 76, soft-spoken, gentle, the kind of man who still opened doors for strangers. He came in not for anything urgent, but because, as he put it, I just feel like my battery doesn't charge anymore. His labs weren't terrible, but his spirit felt dim. I sleep, I eat, I walk a little, but nothing feels alive in me anymore. What struck me was that Gerald had been healthy most of his life. No major surgeries, no family history of heart disease, but he looked older than his age. His skin was pale, his voice was quiet, his eyes had lost their spark. As we talked more deeply, I discovered something telling. He hadn't masturbated or had any kind of sexual stimulation in nearly 15 years. Not because he was incapable, but because somewhere along the line he decided that part of him was done. He'd shut that door, locked it, and thrown away the key. And that's when I explained something many men never hear but desperately need to understand. When you stop masturbating completely in older age, it's not just about circulation, hormones, or muscles. It's about what that decision tells your body, what it signals. And when the body senses that sexual function, arousal, and pleasure are no longer needed, it begins to deprioritize systems tied to those activities. The body is efficient. It allocates resources where they're needed most. And when it no longer sees a reason to maintain vascular health in the genitals, or strength in the pelvic floor, or regular release of life-affirming hormones, it starts scaling those systems down. That includes immune function, cardiovascular resilience, even brain chemistry. This isn't theory. There are studies that show a correlation between regular sexual activity and increased lifespan, stronger immunity, and improved mental health in older adults. It's not about frequency, it's about engagement. When you stay sexually connected to yourself, even through something as simple and private as masturbation, you're sending your body a clear message. I'm still here, I still want to live fully. And that message matters. Because when that message is absent for too long, your body responds accordingly. You may see faster aging in your skin, more muscle wasting, slower wound healing, poorer sleep, and emotionally you begin to withdraw, not just from others, but from life itself. Gerald nodded when I told him all this. He was quiet for a moment, then said, I thought I was just being realistic, that I had to let go of that part of me, but maybe I gave it up too early. He hadn't lost the ability. He just lost the belief that it mattered. So we worked together not to revive some fantasy of youth, but to remind his body that it still had purpose. He began touching himself again slowly with compassion instead of judgment, and something shifted, not overnight but gradually. His energy came back. His appetite returned. He started walking farther. He laughed more. His eyes had life again. That's the quiet power of staying connected to your sexual self. It's not about lust. It's about longevity. It's about refusing to let the body shut down before it has to. And that brings us to the bigger question. If all of this can happen when a man stops masturbating, what does it mean for you right now? What should you actually do next? In the conclusion, I'll give you a clear path forward, simple, shame-free steps to reconnect with your body, reignite your health, and reclaim your vitality. So stay with me. This next part could change everything. Conclusion. If you've made it this far, I want to say something to you, not as a doctor, but as a man who's walked beside thousands of others in their 60s, 70s, and beyond. You've just listened to 7 powerful truths that most men never hear, and I know some of it may have stirred things in you. Memories, regrets, even a bit of discomfort. That's okay. That's the beginning of healing. We started by talking about the prostate, how years without ejaculation can lead to stagnation, swelling, and discomfort that quietly builds. Then we talked about circulation and how the penis, like any muscle, loses its strength and function without regular blood flow and stimulation. We explored the hidden world of the pelvic floor, those unseen muscles that hold up your manhood, your bladder, your core, and how they weaken in silence when you stop engaging that part of your body. Then we moved into the mind. The mental fog, irritability, and emotional dullness that can creep in when the brain is cut off from dopamine, oxytocin, and all those life-giving neurochemicals that sexual pleasure naturally brings. We talked about testosterone, not as a number on a lab test, but as a living pulse of your masculine drive, your resilience, your fire, and how it can fall faster than you realize when the body thinks its services are no longer needed. Then came the emotional heart of it all, the shame, the sense of detachment, the loneliness that builds when a man stops touching himself, not just his skin, but his soul. And finally, we talked about longevity, about how that quiet decision to give up pleasure, to stop engaging, can actually send the body a message to start shutting things down, long before it should. But here's the thing, none of this is irreversible. I've seen men in their 60s, 70s, even 80s reclaim their bodies, their vitality, and their connection to life, not with pills or drastic changes, but with something as simple and sacred as self-respect. And often that begins with letting go of shame, with allowing themselves to reconnect with their own touch, their own pleasure, their own quiet aliveness. This isn't about lust. It's not about addiction. It's not about becoming someone you're not. It's about staying alive, staying present, staying grounded in the only body you'll ever have. If you've been disconnected for years, you can come back to yourself. If you felt numb or unworthy, you can reclaim that spark. And if no one ever told you that this part of you still matters, I'm telling you now, with full conviction, it absolutely does. You are not done. Your body is still listening, and the moment you begin to care for it again, not out of guilt, but out of love, it will respond. So take your time, let go of the rules that never served you. Touch without shame, feel without judgment, and live, not just longer, but fuller. Because at the end of the day, it's not just about masturbation, it's about honoring the man you still are and the life you still deserve to live. I'm Dr. James, and I'm honored to be walking this journey with you. If this message spoke to you, if it opened your eyes or helped you feel seen again, please take a moment to like this video and share it with a friend who might need to hear it too. Your voice matters, so leave a comment below and let me know what resonated most or what you'd like me to cover in future episodes. And if you'd like to support this channel so we can keep bringing honest, life-changing content to men over 60, consider making a small donation using the link in the description. Every like, share, comment, and contribution helps more men reclaim their strength, dignity, and health, naturally and without shame. Thank you for being here. You're not alone.